Welcome to SI Now. It's Tuesday, February 14th. I'm Andrew Perloff.
And I'm Seth Everett. Happy Valentine's Day. And this show is not brought to you by Hallmark.
And we're not going to talk about Kevin Love or Derrick Rose or pro wrestler Bret Hart, and not even one of your favorites, former big leaguer Ellis Valentine.
Yes. How well you know me. By the way, Andrew, I got you something.
Oh.
I just want to say it's been great working with you, buddy.
Wow, I didn't get you anything.
I noticed that. Yeah, I saw when you walked in.
Sorry. Awkward.
Coming up on today's show, we tackle the futures of Tony Romo and Jimmy Garoppolo. Who should be interested and where will they land? We'll try to figure things out.
But we start with Major League Baseball. Pitchers and catchers are reporting in Arizona and Florida. Yet with all the proposed rule changes, is baseball flawed? I know, Seth, you think so. I got to ask you, what is baseball's biggest problem?
Well, baseball's in a weird place right now. People outside the game think it's for older folks, not millennials. They do amazing work online, but it's hard to fight a stigma. Making the ballpark experience is one thing, but this responsibility falls to broadcasters, TV, radio, to not do things the old way. Do you know the MLB scoreboards during play-by-play? Trust me, if you are watching this and have the urge to know what Toronto and Detroit are doing, you can find it out before I even finish this sentence. Baseball can't do things the old ways simply because it's not 1977 anymore.
All right, Seth. I want to know how you're going to fix these problems. Give me 3 things that baseball should do to make it a better game and experience both on the field and from the stands. But first, we need an expert opinion to counter you two. Let's bring in Fox Sports, CJ Nitkowski, new voice of the Texas Rangers, former big league pitcher. And I know he's going to have some interesting things to say to you, Seth.
As he always will. CJ, welcome.
Andrew, Seth, how you guys doing? Good to be with you guys today.
It's good to have you
Great.
on the
You ready
show.
for Seth? 3 fixes to baseball? Let's hit it, Seth.
All right, number 1, cut down on strikeouts. Now, CJ, you are a pitcher, but hitters do not protect the plate when they get 2 strikes on them. Sluggers get paid to slug, and more often than not, they kill rallies with a strikeout, which when added up, just simply, CJ, gets boring to watch. Your thoughts?
It does, but the upside is when guys are swinging bigger, that should mean more home runs. We'll never replicate what we did during the PED era, and that's for a different reason. But, no, you're right, and it's frustrating, but that's the way the game is now, and I don't think that's changing anytime soon. Front office executives are okay with strikeouts. They don't nearly look at them as a negative as much as they used to, and that's why that 2-strike approach is gone, and it's why we don't have Wade Boggs types and Tony Gwynn types nearly as much as we used to, whereas, like you mentioned, shortening up, trying to put the ball in play with 2 strikes, put some pressure on the defense. They're teaching it now, and they're okay with it. And, yeah, it's not always the most fun to watch, but at the same time, watching Max Scherzer strike out 20 is kind of fun, and it does keep the game moving along a little bit more. But the days of guys shortening up and just trying to put the ball in play with 2 strikes is it's gone, man. I ask coaches all the time about it, and they just say, you know what, it's changed, and guys don't want to go back because they know they're going to get paid if they hit home runs.
Well, you're a pitcher. You know, of course, you like the strikeouts. I got to tell you, Seth, you know, I'm a home run guy. Is it one or the other? Are you going to lose home runs if you cut down on strikeouts?
Well, it's definitely what guys are scared of, right? That's the one thing that they don't want to get cheated on. They don't want to just hit a weak ground ball to third base. They use the example of a left-handed hitter maybe shortening up his swing. And so there is that fear. And even though we saw a guy like Chris Carter who hit 41 home runs not get the kind of contract that you might have expected this past offseason, you know, he's kind of an extreme case where the strikeouts are so off the charts and the batting average was so low he hit in the low 200s. But for even guys like Chris Davis, I mean, he got $161 million. He's going to continue to strike out in favor of hitting home runs. And it's a tough sell on a young player to tell him that he shouldn't be trying to do that when you see veteran guys established at the big league level that are getting paid well, that are taking that exact same approach.
Sure, absolutely. All right, number 2, more day games, especially on Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day. They are called the boys of summer, my friend, not the boys of twilight. And players love playing day games, just not after night games. CJ, this sport misses greenies, don't they?
They do. Unfortunately, that was probably part of the reason why guys were able to plow through for a generation or two during those day games because 162 is a grind. I was never a fan of day games. I didn't like pitching in them. But now that I'm on this side, I absolutely love watching them. Right? I love opening day when we're looking, we get that full opening day where there's 15 games going on and they're starting as early. Sometimes if you're on the West Coast at 10 o'clock in the morning and you get to watch baseball all day. I love that. As a fan, it's a tougher sell, I think, to owners because a Wednesday day game, the holidays you're going to do okay, but a Wednesday day game when it's a non-holiday is not going to do as well as a night game, both on television and when you're looking at your gate. So it's a financial issue, I think. It's a ratings issue when you talk about the guys that are running the game that probably are not nearly as interested. Now, if you got a place like Wrigley and the great atmosphere and it's the Cubs, those day games are going to do pretty well. They're not going to do nearly as well in places like Milwaukee. And so, unfortunately, I don't think we see that change. I'm with you. It would be fun. I love day games, again, as a fan and as a broadcaster, but never as a player. Well, and I see where you're going with it. I just don't think we'll see as many.
Well, I understand. That's the idea. I'm trying to do this as a fan. As far as what players want to see, they get the 15th and the 31st. They get paid. They're taken care of. The minimum salary is over $500,000 now. So, all right, number 3, interleague play. I can't stand it. It ruins fairness. Half of the league has geographical rivals. The other half has made up one. So the Yankees play the Mets this year, but the Red Sox get Atlanta for no reason. In the last 5 seasons, between 2 and 4 divisions were decided by 4 or less games. Strength of schedule is a term served for football. We have to get rid of this.
I'm actually with you on this one. And, interleague play, when it first happened, it was exciting and it was new, but it's gotten kind of old and played out, and it's lost its luster. And I'll take it even a step further because I'm not a big fan of divisional play either, to be honest with you. Look at a team like the Pirates a couple of years ago, right? They win 95 games, but they're a wild card team. But meanwhile, the Mets, if I'm not mistaken, that year, I believe they won 90 games, but they were division winners, right? And so you look at that and say, well, that hardly seems fair that the Mets or even the Dodgers, I think 192, they get to go right into a full playoff series, where a team like the Pirates, they have to sit there and battle a wild card spot and get knocked out. I am actually a fan of going where you play every team in your league 11 times. That's going to give you 154 games, and then knock down interleague play to just 8 games a year. Make it a little bit more special again. That's the route that I would go with this. I think that's probably your best bet as far as getting a much more balanced schedule and limiting a lot of that interleague play.
But, CJ, that's a pretty big change from tradition. That's going very far. I mean, I grew up with divisions.
He's a rebel.
And you're not going to create rivalries. Are you worried about that? I feel like it's just too mathematical.
Well, you're still playing. I mean, listen, you're going to have your ones. The Yankees and the Red Sox, even if all 14 teams are in the other 14 teams, you're playing them as much. It's still going to be a Yankees-Red Sox rivalry. There's still going to be, those games are going to sell out. They're going to be on ESPN often on Sunday Night Baseball. That doesn't change. It's still 11 times. When I first broke in, we went to every city twice. Even though we had divisions, we still went to every city twice. You can keep the divisions the way you want, but at least balance the schedule out. At least where you're going every place. But now the Yankees only go to play the Angels once, and the Angels only come there once. And then, of course, within your division, you're now playing 19 times. So just any way to even maybe decrease divisional play, especially now, think about this, too. How many teams do we know going into the season are rebuilding? Like now more than ever, teams are pretty clear about the fact that they're not going to be competitive. So a lot of times you're getting 2 or even 3 teams that are not competing that year, and you have a chance to run away with your division. Then you kind of get hosed a little bit come postseason time because you're only a wild card team as opposed to a team that maybe squeaks out a weaker division without nearly as many wins.
That's true.
All right, TJ, well, we're not going to solve baseball problems overnight, but I think we took some good steps here. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Let's get the commissioner on the phone. I think we got this.
Definitely.
On this Valentine's Day, the subject of love when it comes to quarterbacks is only for the chosen few. If you have Cam Newton or Andrew Luck or the greatest Tom Brady, Google just told me I am the 6,025th person to call Tom Brady the greatest. How about that?
Wow.
More teams want someone different. And if you're the Browns, the Niners, or the Bears, is that quarterback going to be acquired through the draft? Or could he be in the league already, just wearing a different uniform right now? Let's start with Jimmy Garoppolo. Surely he showed he's competent under center in a short sample size. What's your thought?
Well, I like Jimmy Garoppolo. I think in 2 games you saw him have 119 passer rating for the Patriots. He's athletic, he's accurate, he's smart, he's everything you want in a quarterback. If you put him into this draft class, for me, he's the first quarterback taken. He's 25. I mean, that's practically draft age anyway. So if I'm a team out there that needs a quarterback, and we know the teams, I think I would look hard at Garoppolo, and I would give up a lot for him. How about you?
Well, it's funny because when we were talking about this off the air, the idea that he's a Patriot shouldn't factor into this. You see the raw talent there, and you see that under good coaching and good tutelage, he could really do something. Are you cautious?
Well, yeah, of course. It's like getting a pitcher from the Atlanta Braves. You never really want to take the Patriots' throwaways. But Garoppolo's a little bit different. He was well thought of coming out of the draft. He went in the second round. He could have gone in the first round. Really smart offensive people like Kyle Shanahan, who's taking over the Niners, really like Garoppolo. So I think not only his little bit of games that we've seen, 2 games, before that, I think a lot of people like Garoppolo, and he took a big jump. You could see it in preseason, too. I'm a preseason addict. I saw Garoppolo before last year. It looked really sharp. So I don't think the Patriots factor comes into play here.
I just hope that he goes to the Chicago Bears. He's an Illinois kid.
Yeah.
And I just would love the idea that the Bears could build around somebody that fans could really get behind.
Yeah, but come on. Do you want to be a contender who gets Garoppolo? Because you're going to have to pay him after this year. Are you going to give up the number 3 pick for Jimmy Garoppolo? That is high. In football terms, that's a ton of value. You know that draft chart, the old Jimmy Johnson draft chart? Right. Number 3 isn't even on there. It's so high. That's a huge investment for a guy who's going to be a free agent. Does that scare you?
It does, only in the sense that when you talk about, the draft class, I know we're going to be talking about that later, I just don't love any of the quarterbacks that are in the draft class. So if you have the number 3 pick and you could turn it into Garoppolo, I just think it's a win-win.
Well, look at the teams that need him. You got the Browns, who are sitting there with 1 and 12. Everyone thinks they want Myles Garrett at 1, the defensive end out of A&M. That 12 is a good spot. But you got San Francisco at 2, clearly need a quarterback. You got the Bears, as you mentioned. The Jets.
Who?
You never know what the Jets are going to do. Yes, they had a terrible season. But they have the pieces of a great defense. They might think that we can bring in a Garoppolo. I don't know if they could prime away from their rival, the Patriots. There are a lot of teams that need a quarterback here. And, there's another name out there, another Illinois product, another Eastern Illinois product who might fit teams even better than Garoppolo. What about Tony Romo? What do you see happening with the Cowboys quarterback this offseason? It's
pretty amazing because there was always talk until the Cowboys were eliminated. The talk was he was going to get the Cowboys back.
Yeah.
And everybody feared, what would happen there, what kind of controversy. And now there's decisions that they need to make. And yes, there's going to be a salary cap hit, but is it better for their franchise to simply just cut bait and let Tony Romo try to resurface with another team? It's not the same exact circumstance as Peyton Manning, but it worked for Peyton Manning, and it worked for the Indianapolis Colts. They were able to get Andrew Luck in the deal, and while they haven't put their team together yet, the fact of the matter is Luck's not the weak link.
I'm of the Tony Romo is underrated school. I know that sounds weird because obviously he gets so much attention, but I don't think people remember how good a quarterback he is. I think he has missing piece written all over him. What makes me nervous, he's played how many games in the last 2 years? 4. He's 37 years old. I mean, I haven't had back surgery, but I understand it's not good. So I'm worried about his health, but I see a team that has a great defense. Let's say the Houston Texans. Let's say the Broncos. And, maybe even the Jets have the pieces for a great defense. Say, we could bring in Romo, and that'll give us just enough offense. Can you imagine Houston, AFC South? Romo gives the Texans an immediate advantage. I know they have a lot of money invested in Brock Osweiler, $16 million, I believe, this year. That's an expensive quarterback room, but to me, that feels like the best fit on paper.
Well, see, it's funny because it's not going to happen, but I'd love him to be in Denver. I think what John Elway did with the idea of Peyton Manning, who was a shell of his former self, and built a franchise around the leadership of Manning, not the talent of Manning. He wasn't the same guy. You could do the same thing with Tony Romo, and John Elway knows how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you got the pieces there. You got Demaryius Thomas, you got Emmanuel Sanders, you have receivers. Sure. It's not quite Dallas. Dallas's offense was awesome. I agree. I'd like to see him in Denver, but if I had the choice between Houston and Denver, Houston, the weak schedule. Denver, you got Khalil Mack running after you. You got all those Kansas City Chiefs defenders. I think that's a tougher spot. And also, John Elway doesn't seem to want him. I don't understand that.
I don't get that.
Yeah.
He was so gung-ho for Manning, and he's not. He doesn't seem to be interested.
Well,
in every interview he does, maybe he's playing possum.
I think he's a pretty smart guy. He might be playing us. I mean, we're sitting here. We're like, of course Tony Romo fits with the Broncos. It's a little more complicated than that. And by the way, there's some dollars running around here. The man is going to get paid a lot.
Yeah, yes, and that's going to factor into it because there's only certain teams that have the cap room.
Yeah, break down all the cap ramifications right now.
Yeah, that's going to happen in the next show. No way. Tony Romo may not be feeling the love from the Cowboys, but on this Valentine's Day, well, let's just say he does okay with the ladies. Speaking of love, that's something I never thought I'd say on a television show. John Wertheim takes a look back at the history of sports' lovely tradition, the kiss cam.
Opinions may be divided on kiss, and opinions may be divided on cam. But who among us doesn't love the kiss cam? And on Valentine's Day, what better time to show our affection for one of the best promotions in all of sports? The kiss cam is thought to have started in the 80s when teams were looking for video bits to put on their fancy new in-stadium screens. Since then, it's become as much a part of the sports experience as the seventh inning stretch or the inevitable t-shirt toss. It's reliable entertainment even when we're not happy with the game itself. Why do we love the kiss cam so much? Well, for many of the same reasons we love sports. It's unpredictable and unscripted. They're heroes and there are villains. They're trades for upgrades and talent. It was a wise man who once said that happiness is like a kiss, you must share it to enjoy it. And the kiss cam takes that to heart, so to speak. It uses one kiss to share happiness among the fans of an entire arena.
Seth, if you see that camera rolling around and your wife's there, do you do it? Would you do the kiss
I think
cam?
my wife would divorce me.
Yeah, I'd rather be caught eating nachos and cheese dripping all over me. I would not kiss in front of 1,000 people.
My favorite one is when they do the thing where the guy's not paying attention.
Yeah.
And he's looking at his phone. That I like. That to me is entertainment.
Now, for me, I'm the guy who dances at the breaks. I'm doing Running Man, getting on camera. No, not so much. Yes, now, SI.com NFL draft expert Chris Burke. Now, Chris, we've been talking about veteran quarterbacks, Garoppolo and Romo, but there are clearly not enough good ones to go around for all the QB-needy teams. How many quarterbacks do you expect to be drafted in the first round?
I think we're probably looking at 4, and I think it's the 4 names that we're familiar with by this point, which is Deshaun Watson, Mitch Trubisky, Deshaun Kaiser, and Patrick Mahomes. I think Mahomes is the one to kind of keep an eye on because he's sort of surging right now just in how much people know him and how much people are paying attention to him. But I think talent-wise and upside, he's right there with the top of this group. And so, like you said, there are so many quarterback-needy teams. So I guess we'll see how the chips fall here in the next few weeks. If the 49ers and Bills and Browns all end up with veteran quarterbacks, that changes things. But I think we're going to see 4 in that first round.
4 quarterbacks, but there's so many red flags, Chris. I mean, let's start at the top. Deshaun Watson, 17 interceptions. How do you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that you do. I think some of them, you go back and look, and they're not all on him, as usually is the case. I think there were some bad reads. There were definitely some bad throws, and that's something that teams are going to have to figure out. If that's a part of his game that can be fixed going to the NFL, or if he's always going to be a little turnover prone. But I think you'll hear a lot of talk about what Matt Ryan did his final year at Boston College. I think he ended up with 18 interceptions that year, and we obviously see what he's done in the right offense in Atlanta. So I think it's something that, you're never going to completely get rid of that part of his game, but a lot of it was just sort of reading defenses, a couple bad throws. So I think there are, that number's higher than maybe his play suggested.
Now, Mitch Trubisky started just 13 games at North Carolina. Is there enough information about him to go on?
I think if you're looking for traits, if you're looking for things that translate to the next level, then there's enough information. I mean, we had similar conversation last year with Carson Wentz. He missed almost all of his senior year with that wrist injury and then came back and played in the championship game. So it was a very similar conversation. Not a lot of passes thrown. And for Carson Wentz, it was against a lower level of competition, too. At least with Trubisky, you've seen him against that FBS competition. So, yeah, I mean, I think with all these guys, to some extent, you're talking about a very difficult situation if you want them to step in like Wentz did and play, or like Dak Prescott did. In terms of the physical attributes and the mental attributes that you look for from a quarterback, I think that there's enough there to figure out whether or not you want him in that first round.
Now, one guy I've seen you move up and down, Chris, is Deshaun Kaiser, the Notre Dame quarterback. I can't get over that he lost his starting job. Is that something that should really worry teams?
I mean, I think that'll come up and when they talk to him about what happened in his college career. And the same thing with Trubisky. That's a similar question now because Trubisky, the reason he doesn't have a lot of starts is because he didn't win the starting job until this year. So I think you'll be looking at similar questions for both those guys. I mean, to some extent, I think you try to separate Kaiser from what really became quite a bit of turmoil. I think you try to figure out how much of it was him, how much of it was coaching, how much of it was just factors beyond his control. And so it'll come up, and those losses will come up, certainly. But again, I think if you're looking for a guy who kind of fits the NFL mold, he's got that size, he's got some mobility. We see him make the throws to all levels of the field. So a lot of the boxes are checked off still.
Now, Patrick Mahomes, great arm. He's got a cannon, but he's coming out of the air raid offense at Texas Tech. That's a tough transition. I mean, I think Jared Goff struggled coming out of a similar offense. Chris, is that going to keep teams at bay from Mahomes?
I'm sure it'll scare some teams away. And it is, yeah. I mean, we saw Goff struggle. We've seen those air raid system quarterbacks struggle repeatedly at the next level. You mentioned the arm. I think that's one of the big selling points for him. He has an absolute cannon. He throws from those sort of Matthew Stafford arm angles where you wonder how he's even getting the ball to go forward, and he throws it 50 yards on a dime. So that arm is special, and if a team can figure out how to use it, I mean, he's like I said, I think he has as much upside as anyone in this draft.
Now, Chris, you said 4 quarterbacks for this first round. That's in your drafts that you've been publishing. But is there any chance to get one other quarterback into the first round? Any love, maybe Pitts, Nate Peterman?
I think Peterman, I think Davis Webb are probably the two, and Webb's got some of the same problems as Patrick Mahomes and definitely the same problems as Jared Goff because he's coming out of that Cal system and before that the Texas Tech system. So those are the two. Peterman's really the one that seems to be, quote unquote, rising right now, and I think he had a decent week at the Senior Bowl, and he sort of looks the part. He has that size and really stands in the pocket well, will take a hit and make the throw. I have a hard time believing either of those quarterbacks jump into round one. I just don't know that that special level of talent there. I think maybe it's a day 2 look. I think it's more likely that we end up with 3 quarterbacks in round one than that there's 5 or 6.
All right, Chris, the Combine starts in a couple weeks. One player won't be there. It was getting a lot of attention, Oklahoma running back Joe Mixon. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't ask what you think will happen with Mixon. Will he be drafted?
I think he will be drafted. I put him in round 3 to the Colts, the last mock draft we did, because the main reason was just sort of connecting the dots on Chris Ballard, who jumped from Kansas City to Indianapolis, and he was there as director of player personnel when Kansas City took Tyreek Hill, who obviously had similar off-field questions and problems. So, I think there will be a lot of teams that don't want to touch Joe Mixon because they're worried about his behavior. They're worried about what's in his past. They don't want to deal with the PR issues. But you look at that talent, and I think once you get past Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, he's arguably the most talented back of the remaining group, right up there with Christian McCaffrey and those guys. So I think there's going to be a team somewhere along the line that decides that they can give him that second chance, third chance, whatever chance he's on now, because the talent level is so high. We see it time and again. If the talent's there, teams are kind of willing to look past those mistakes, and I think it'll happen. I don't know if round 3, I felt a little high going to round 3, but I think somewhere in that round 3 to round 5 range it happens.
Well, Chris, thanks so much for joining us. And we know between now and April, you will do about 3,000 of these type interviews. So we appreciate that you're fresh and ready to go for us.
3,000 mock drafts probably too, so I should get cracking on the next one. Thanks for having me, guys.
You got it. We can tell you that NBA legend Michael Jordan sat in on a pretty big meeting yesterday, but rest assured, it was in no way the conversation between Houston Rockets guard Eric Gordon and SI.com's Rohan Carney. Here's Gordon on Houston's playoff chances and who is the greatest three-point shooter he's ever seen.
You've missed the last couple games with a back injury. How's your back feeling, and do you have a sense about when we'll see you on the court again? Oh, I'll be on the court real soon. I'm not really too worried about it. It was just something I had to deal with back, more like kind of back spasm kind of thing, and nothing to worry about.
After all the injuries and obstacles you've kind of had in your career so far, what would it mean to you to win the Sixth Man of the Year award?
Yeah, it definitely meant a lot because, I've been in kind of, in the dark or under the radar over the past, 4 or 5 years. And I'm just happy to, get back into playing, having really, really good fun, winning games, and also producing at a high level. So it's really fun for it to be this way.
Would you say this is the happiest you've been so far in your NBA career?
Yeah, no question. This is the happiest because, I've never been on a team where we're winning like this and, everybody's having fun. It's just easy flowing, We're just an easy going team. You have a great coaching staff that cares about the players, and the players look forward to, playing with each other every single night, and looking forward to everybody playing well each night. So that's the fun thing about it.
You're scheduled to take part in the three-point shooting contest in New Orleans, your former home. How big of an advantage is that for you?
Yeah, I'm excited to shoot back in New Orleans. Definitely would like to win that. There's always a lot of good shooters in that three-point contest. So, so I definitely want to take that task on and into possibly winning it.
So I know you have a lot of confidence in your game, but in your eyes, who's the best three-point shooter in the NBA?
I would like to be. But to be realistic, you got to say Seth Curry is because he's going to break, at the end of the day, he's going to break everybody's three-point records or whatnot. He does it in so many different ways on the court. What I really like about him is that he can shoot it off the bounce and catch and shoot at a very high level. So you definitely got to give the edge to him. I would say he's the best ever three-point shooter so far. So.
Currently, you guys have the third best record in the NBA, but it seems like everyone's already penciling in a Warriors-Cavaliers NBA Finals matchup. Do you guys talk about that as a team? Does it motivate you that you're maybe overlooked a little bit?
Not really bother us because, those teams always have a loaded team. And, year in and year out, they always kind of, they basically make it. But it gives us motivation. I think we have a chance. We really do. And, but, teams are looking at us under the radar. They think, we're kind of overachieving. But I think we're as good as anyone.
All right, man. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time here at Sports Illustrated.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, man.
I tell you, Seth, the Rockets are an interesting team.
Yeah, they should be. Hopefully Eric Gordon's back soon.
Yeah, for sure. We close today with something really spectacular. Last night, the UConn women's basketball team did something amazing. They won their 100th consecutive game. Now, it's not the first time in sports we've seen this number take on a special meaning. On March 2nd, 1962, Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points in Hershey, Pennsylvania. But that was one man's endeavor on a single night, not a day in and day out tribute to team play and repeated conquests. What the Huskies did last night is nothing short of amazing. Coach Gino Auriemma guided his squad past Katie Lou Samuelson's scoreless first half and a slow start from junior forward Gabby Williams, who would finish the star of the night with 26 points and 14 rebounds. After coming away with a 66-55 win over South Carolina and hitting the century mark for consecutive victories, the Huskies are left with 12 more contests. The question is, just when will the streak end? That's going to do it for the Tuesday edition of SI Now. Thank you, Seth. Maggie and Matt Stryker will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Until then, stick with SI.com for all the latest news. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. Have a great day.